welcome to the Emotional Balance Sheet Podcast, your guide to help you manage life, money, and multiples. Each episode, host Paul Fenner, Tama Capital's president and founder, and the proud parent of 4 amazing children, including 1 set of triplets, will provide insights on successfully sustaining an active lifestyle, career, and family through comprehensive wealth management strategies, financial education, and lifestyle planning, specific to parents raising twins, triplets, and more. Learn more, subscribe to the show, or connect with Paul at tamacapital.com.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of TAMA may retain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast.
What if you had a child on the autism spectrum who couldn't find a job? Not because they couldn't work, but because of a lack of opportunities. This was a challenge that Steven Bier was facing with his autistic son, Sam, who was highly functional. After being challenged by his wife, Barb, Steve invested $30,000 and bought a popcorn company in 2014. Today, Popcorn for the People employs between 70 and 80 men and women with some form of disability, especially those with autism, who might not have had the chance to find meaningful work. As Steve pointed out during our conversation, a job is worth way more than the money for someone with special needs. A job could be a lifeline to being and feeling independent, to build social skills that are challenging under normal circumstances. And for parents, a job can be an opportunity to see their children develop in ways that they likely thought were unimaginable. Doing good that tastes good is probably the best way I would describe Steve and the organization he has helped to build. I'm sure that you will be buying some popcorn after listening to this episode. Please enjoy my conversation with Steven Bier. Well, Steve Bier, welcome to the Emotional Balance Sheet Podcast.
Good morning.
Well, as many people may or may not know, I first saw you and your son Sam on a Today Show episode on a weekend, and we were just talking. Like, I'm not a Today Show follower, but your story really pulled at me because I think it sits at the heart of being a parent and trying to do what's best for our kids, and then the financial side of being a parent as well, especially in your case. So I think probably, Steve, the best place to start is let our audience know, talk a little bit about who you are and the business that you started with your son, Sam, who is autistic.
So Sam is high-functioning autistic young man. And if you go back to 2014, he had very difficult getting any sort of meaningful, fulfilling jobs. He was doing, basically jobs that for his so lousy. For other people, it may have been fantastic. For him, it wasn't great. So the last one he was doing was pushing shopping carts at a major supermarket chain. I won't say the name, ShopRite. And he forgot to put on his suntan lotion. It was July. He came home red as a lobster. So my wife she's a developmental pediatrician. There's maybe a couple of hundred of them in the country. Her whole life is taking care of, young men and women who are autistic or other developmental disabilities. And she looked at the situation. She said, "This is ridiculous." She said, "Steve, you're not worth much to me, but one thing I know you can do is make a business. Go make a business for Sam." So we had no blueprint, no plan, no capitalization set up. And life's funny sometimes. Every now and then, whether you're a believer, you're not a believer, every now and then you really have to stop and wonder, is the good Lord doing something? Because we got at that time, we got a, one of those books listing businesses for sale. It really wasn't that well set up on the internet. And we opened up, and the very first one was a popcorn stand for sale in a local mall. I'm like, oh, popcorn. That's not seasonal. That cuts across all social economic barriers. It's not dangerous to make. I don't really need knives. I said, that could work. And we opened a little popcorn stand. And we bought it for like think it was like $30,000, $40,000. So which is always the first lesson I say to people is, if you're going to try to do something, don't overcapitalize. Don't throw all your capital in at the beginning. Make sure you have, some dry powder, because things are going to happen.
So when did you guys actually, let me back up. Let's talk about Sam for a little bit. Like how did you guys find out about his autism? Because I know that there's parents that listen to this that have kids who are autistic,
Right.
and obviously some that don't. And I think it would be really interesting for our listeners to see how you and your wife went through the process of that diagnosis.
Right off the bat, I tell all parents, listen to the people around you, certainly the people you trust. The people around us spotted it first. We as parents, and we're both physicians, didn't sense it. And now over the decades, I've seen this over and over again. We love our kids, and we tend to think what's going on is just routine. And sometimes it's not. And, one of our cousins had said something about, he keeps playing by himself with trucks in the corner. I go, okay, yeah, he likes trucks. And then we noticed when all of a sudden he'd cover his ears, and like 20 seconds later, we'd all hear an ambulance. He would hear that sound a mile ahead of the rest of us. And we thought, oh, wow, he's like a little Superman. And we didn't really click. And then finally, his teachers said, he's not listening, go get his hearing checked. And then, of course, once we started down that path, of course, his hearing was fine, so forth. We ended up with Dr. Gold. I don't even know if he's still alive. At Columbia Presbyterian, an excellent organization that was way ahead of the time. This was like 1994, before it was really exploding on the general population. So, listen to those who love you around you, because a parent, sometimes your love gets in the way.
That's really interesting. I've never heard anybody describe it that way. But I get it. It makes sense. Like sometimes you're just too close to the action, if you will, to pick up on the hidden triggers, if you will.
Yeah. And look, I'll tell you the other end of the spectrum, because he has twin brothers, and people come to us and say, your twins are really smart. I'm like, yeah, I know they're smart. One day do what I do, one day do what my wife does. And no, you're right. And they once got into a fist fight over the French and Indian War. And we just didn't see it, and we probably didn't give them the education they needed. Long story short, one became the youngest person accepted to Harvard Business School, and they're both Silicon techies. One of them is working on helped build a driverless car at Cruise, and to me, they were my two dopey little twins.
That's awesome. So are your twins older or younger than Sam?
The twins are about a year and a half younger, and it's interesting because they grew up really as triplets, basically. And
well, I have triplets, right? Did you?
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And part of my triplets, I have a girl who's the oldest by obviously, some seconds. And then I have a set of identical twin boys. So it's really unique.
So yeah, they grew up as triplets, and Sam was a very positive influence when they were young, because he had this high functioning Asperger's type mind and would be learning stuff. And so the twins thought, oh, that's normal. And, by the time, I don't know, 4 years old, they could take a state map and go through name every state. And then they start working on state capitals. Again, you might think it's normal until you look back. So we as parents messed up on both ends of the spectrum.
Well, I think I think I would echo what most of us parents would say. We all mess up pretty much on a daily basis.
Did you? I mean, we left the manual in the hospital when Bobby gave birth to the the manual they give you on how to raise a perfect kid. I left mine there at the bedside, and it's been hard.
Yeah, I missed that one too. So your wife comes home and says, okay, you got to find Sam a job. You got to start a business. So you find this popcorn stand in the mall. And so back us up, like what year was that, Steve?
So that was 2014. And we started small, one or two of his friends or kids from school. They'd be doing sampling, handing out samples, which, by the way, we found was one of the greatest business technique. samples will double or triple sales. It seems so silly, such a little thing, but they do. And then the best thing happened to us. They threw us out. They threw us out of the mall because a international popcorn company came in and offered $350,000 for a 5-year lease, and they built this kiosk and they ran water and electricity, which in a mall is a big deal because you have to rip up that floor.
Right.
You can't do it during the day, so you have to do it at night and pay time and a half. And it's a mall; it's unionized. So they put all this money in. So they were like, "You guys are gone." And so we went to a second mall, East Brunswick Mall. And now we were starting to get a little bigger, a little more organized. And we added Belgian waffles, we added sandwiches. And that was the next business lesson. Just try to do one thing that you do it and do it really well. If you just do one thing really well, you're on a really good path. So we quickly learned to get rid of the sandwiches and get rid of the Belgian waffles. And then this mall came along and we got very lucky. They threw us out. So now we've been thrown out.
So now you've been thrown out of 2 malls.
Yes. And the town of East Brunswick was very smart, and they grabbed this developer, Frank Reek, who was kind enough to give us about 1,600 square feet in warehouse type space. And we started cooking there. Now we're getting even bigger. And pretty soon, within the year, we had outgrown that space, and we moved into where we are now, 4,000 square feet, which is now too small for us. And this all is going back to 2014. Plus, you have COVID in the middle of all this. We have probably around approximately 70 or 80 workers with developmental disabilities, mostly on the autism spectrum, a few with hearing. We've had a few with visual impairment, which to me, it's just amazing to see them work. It's gotten big.
So right now, are you in a kind of a mall location, or is it just that warehouse where you guys are actually producing the product? And then how are you selling it? Obviously it's online, and we'll definitely have a link in our show notes to Popcorn for the People that people can go and buy some popcorn.
We are above doing any cheap advertising. We're not going to do cheap advertising.
And for our listenership, Steve is flashing bags of popcorn.
So it's a warehouse space. We're just producing there. The way we sell it is a number of ways. We're not doing retail out of our own store anymore. That's done. We learned our lesson. But we do go to events. And it could be everything from a chocolate show, a farmer's market, to Rutgers football. We're at Rutgers football games and Rutgers basketball games. 40,000 people at a Rutgers football game. And we're at corporate headquarters like Goldman Sachs and a Morgan Stanley. We're at. So, and those are good because we call those away teams. You have there's a neurotypical adult and 1 or 2. And I say kids, some of the kids are in their 50s, 1 or 2 kids on the spectrum. One may be very personable and he'll do the handing out the sampling. Maybe the other one's very good with numbers, but a little shy, so he'll do the point of service. So we call them away teams going out to different places along the Jersey Turnpike at the travel plazas and Philadelphia Eagles and Lincoln Field. So that drives in, some nice revenue. It creates a lot of employment, right? Because you need now people cooking the popcorn, and then you have people out selling them. So you have that. Then you have places where we're not at, but we get sent to wholesale, such as the markets in Newark Airport, the Cebu markets. What used to be HMS Host and is now, I think, Applebound, Aramark, Capital Cafes, and we service them off the shelves. And then lastly is online, which has which grew from like 5% of sales. I think it's up to like 25% of sales.
Is that your biggest percentage is online sales of your total?
I don't think it's biggest yet.
Okay.
Because the biggest thing, well, I mean, you know what? I take that back. Depends how you're going to define it, because one of the biggest things is the holiday seasons. The Christmas, Hanukkah time. could be, like many other companies, that could be 25%, 30% of your sales. So I don't know if you want to define, I guess you would define it as online. And a lot of word of mouth. We really learned, and one of the things I would pass on to your listeners is the power of SEO is great, but there is nothing like, word of mouth. The word of mouth is, all our great opportunities have come word of mouth. And one of the most interesting ones that I just mentioned, the travel plazas on the turnpike. That's a place where we'll get so many calls from. And we realize everyone has to stop there. You can be the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. You could be a janitor. You could be a salesperson, right? You could be the parking attendant. Everyone's stopping there. And we get tremendous exposure from that.
So do you have your teams just stationed there at the travel centers, or is it like a stand that they can just, buy prepackaged product?
We'll be on the shelves, and then certain days we'll be there with a table, and either selling directly there or sending them over to the shelves. You walk in, you see this. Well, you can't see. We're not on TV, but we have this bright red colors that people spent weeks on deciding on the colors, and you can't miss it. Popcorn for the people. People always spot the. We employ adults with autism. And people just even if they slow down a second or two and you put a sample in their hand and they're hooked.
Yeah. And going back to your point about word of mouth, I couldn't agree with you more. I've been an advisor now for over 20 years, and really over the last, I'd say 5 to 7 years, that's really how I've grown, are the people that I work with that know who I do, know that I have this really intense focus on working with families. And that's how it's really grown. And I spend a lot of time like trying to figure out social media, and my wife, Teresa, that's her deal. Like she's a marketing expert. That's her career, but she doesn't get involved with Tama at all. It's solely on me, but it's really been, people having conversations with other people to say, hey, you got to talk to this guy, or in your case, hey, you got to try this popcorn. It's really great. And the idea behind it is even greater, I think.
What's fascinating is when you start doing marketing, word of mouth, SEO, Facebook ads, Google ads, they all work. And they all work nicely together. And it's interesting because people don't often know exactly where they got the information from. They'll say, oh, I think I saw you at a Mets game. And I'll smile because we don't sell at the Mets games, but they know the flavor and they know us. So they obviously did interact, and I'll see that over and over. People, it gets into their subconscious. They're not exactly sure where the connection was made, but that connection sticks. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking internet marketing. It works. It definitely works, but it's a lot of hit and miss. You have to find the right people and hold on to the right people. And it is, people don't realize it, but the heart of it is kind of boring. You're just checking numbers, looking right. Where's it working? Where's it not working? So, I don't want to say I'm knocking it, but I think the 1-2 punch of a strong internet marketing combined with local word of mouth and local SEO, that's the best bet.
So I want to come back to, you mentioned, Steve, that you've got about 70 to 80 kids, I'll use your word, kids mm-hmm. that work at Popcorn for the People. And you already mentioned this, and I remember this from watching the Today Show episode, is that, these kids can range in age from teens to people in their 50s and 60s. So you kind of reference this, well, when we send people out, maybe we have somebody that's a little bit more outgoing, and then somebody that's, better with numbers. Right. Do you have how do you pair those people together? Just you get to know them and figure out like where they function the best and how they can, work with other people, whether they're autistic or not.
People, apply to work. You're very limited what you're allowed to ask in an application process, which is a shame. I know that was put there to protect the young men and women. In our case, it sort of hinders because we want to hire you. Right. The more you know, the better, but you're limited what you can ask. So we'll do something along the lines of come in for 2 days, The first come and get met, and then if it seems okay, come in for 2 days, and if the 2 days work out, then we'll put them on payroll. And we have workers who are ABA therapists, and they don't call them job coaches anymore. I think they call them community support. I think job coaches is now politically out. Now it's community support. And a lot of those community support and therapists, some of them have, a lot of them have family members who are on the spectrum. Even our CEO of the company has a family member. So someone comes in, and then you try to find the areas that work best for them. So, for example, when you see our popcorn bag, the flavor, when you hand over it, the flavor is a sticker. Like, we didn't need to put a sticker. I mean, we could pay for it to be prepaid, but we leave that off on purpose because it creates jobs for very low functioning workers. We also have a sticker on the back, which tells you who made the popcorn, tells you a little something about the person. Again, that gets put on by hand, not by a machine. That's the lowest functioning jobs. And we have others who do packaging. And we have other workers who cook the popcorn. And then, of course, you have the people who are going out and selling at events. So it sort of mimics the autism spectrum, from a lower functioning to a high functioning.
High functioning. Yeah, that was an interesting point that you made in the Today Show episode, that you could easily have, those packages pre-labeled, or you can have, bigger machines that pop even more popcorn. But your point, your goal was to try to employ as many of these people as possible, because if not, they weren't going to get the opportunity to, sometimes even have a job. And I remember one of the people that was interviewed in that episode too, the mom was talking about her son, and her son never left her side, never left the house.
Oh,
but yet he comes to work with you, and it's amazing. Her son is just a completely different person. I'm sure there's lots of stories like that you could share.
We did not think he was making it past his second day. His first day there was a disaster. His second day was a disaster, slightly better. And we were like, look, people were like, maybe we shouldn't hire him. And some instinct made them give him a third day. Long story short, he is in many ways a different kid. He used to have to run out and self-stim and talk to himself in the parking lot. And now he's just and he's doing some sophisticated work. I believe he's cooking the popcorn. So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So do you still have a wait list for people that want to work with you guys?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, we do. But the big news is the Philadelphia Eagles and Wawa. I don't know if you're familiar with Wawa in your state.
Is that so? I'm in Michigan, but I remember those. That's a kind of a gas station, isn't it?
Yeah, right. It's a place where you get coffee in a small supermarket. They sometimes have a gas station there.
Yeah.
It's like high level. It's fast food and fast service, but it's high level. And the big thing is that the coffee's very hot. Anyway, they have combined and working together, and they're building a processing center for us in Philadelphia. And hopefully we're going to have huge news on that, a couple of months right now.
So you're breaking it here first, Steve. Is that what you're telling me?
This is a breaking story. Popcorn for the people with the Philadelphia Eagles, who have an incredible program. Eagles Autism. Their owner, Jeff Lurie, who just missed winning the Super Bowl, funds a lot of money every year to the autism community and autism research. And now Wawa's joining in on this partnership. And hopefully that will help cut that list down, people looking for work.
So you had mentioned this earlier, but so are there and I know you said you're not supposed to use the term coaches, but there are people that are with your autistic workers that are by their side, training them. Can you walk us how in depth is that?
So again, it varies across the spectrum. I have some workers where it may be one-on-one, or maybe one support to 2 or 3 people. There are others who are higher functioning who will be going out with adults who they're not like officially trained, job coaches, but this is their life. They're wonderful. Our main person, one of the main people goes out, Steve Frank. He has a daughter who's severely disabled. So this is his whole life. So he will bring, the kids out and he will work with them. And they'll travel far sometimes. They'll travel into the city. I mentioned Goldman Sachs and then back to Jersey. So we're, there's never a moment where the kids are sitting around doing nothing, or they're not supervised, or there's nothing to do. It's busy.
So from a financial spin, and you maybe talk about Sam a little bit, do the kids understand like the financial kind of ramifications of working? Do they understand, money, their paycheck every week and taxes and things like that? Is there any work that you guys do around that with the kids?
So, as far as imparting financial knowledge, no, not directly. It's an interesting thought. And it's very varied, I think, the attitudes towards the money. I think for most of them, it's the fulfillment of being out of the house and completing a job. And a lot of money is done through the guardians. I will say that we used to be well above minimum wage. And the state caught up with us over the past few years. They added up, I think, $1 every year. So they've caught up to us now. Everyone gets paid. The only ones who don't would be the high school kids who come in as classes and teachers. They're still like job sampling, but anyone there who's working, gets paid.
So for the most part, you would say it's for the kids that are there or that are on the spectrum, they're there more for the it's the life skills that they're learning. It's not.
I think it's more than that. This becomes one of the biggest part of their lives. They're not sitting home doing nothing. I think they definitely do appreciate the money. Some have better math skills than others. The guardians, the parents that we met, are by and large, terrific and trying the best they can. And even working there, for a lot of them, it's a struggle. There's a lot of expenses. I'm sure so we can't cure everything, but we're able to put a paycheck into their hand. We're able to give them something to do when they get up in the morning and come to work. And then one of the other things we do is we're very flexible. A lot of the young men and women, they're not going to do 9 to 5. Only a small percentage of them. I don't know the exact numbers, but
that was one of my questions. Like, how many are like how many hours are people generally working? I'm sure that it's varied.
So my Sam will do 9 to 2, and now he's into expanding that. He's going 9 to 2:30. So it's very variable.
So when it comes to the financial aspect of the business, like, does Sam, like, I know you mentioned Sam's fairly high functioning on the spectrum. Does he grasp the financial implications of working there and earning money? And then does he have like a bigger, maybe a larger understanding of the business as a whole and what it's doing?
I think Sam has a very natural instinct. So he's not sitting there looking at the P&L, but he's getting excited and senses when, the bigness, when the Philadelphia Eagles are coming in. So he has a very good sense for that. And he has a good sense for the negative. But when it's getting too crowded there, when it's getting too crazy, that it becomes Christmas time. There's been a lot of work we've turned away. There was a point, and this would be classic type of thing Sam would pick up on, where in the summer you get busier, a lot of events, a lot of sports going on. And we had an offer to do, like 3 weeks before we get an offer from the U.S. Open, 14,000 bags. And we all put it like, oh my God, we want to do this, we want to do this. But at the end, we decided not to. We said, it's going to be too overwhelming. It's going to be like Christmas here in the middle of the summer. And something like that makes Sam very happy that we're not overdoing it.
That's really interesting, Steve, that he's that in tune and can pick up on, like you said, the really big things.
We got rid of our person who was running the processing center, original sort of CEO, and we brought in a new one. And this wonderful woman, Karen Katzman, we said, Sam, a week to Sam, how's Karen doing? And he goes, we made a good upgrade. We upgraded to 2.0 CEO. Like, okay. Yeah, he's very good at getting to the truths.
That's awesome. So what's your support staff like, as far as like people that are helping to run the business that aren't on the spectrum per se?
Yeah, we have some wonderful people. Most of them have some connection to autism, though not all of them. So I know title we want to call running it, sort of like the president running the company now is Mark Katz. He's the COO, CFO of Vera Wang.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So we have Vera Wang running it. Super nice guy, and everyone takes his phone calls. He goes,
right.
Everyone's gonna need a dress one day, and the guys are gonna have a daughter with a prom date. So everyone takes his phone calls. He devotes an insane amount of time. We tell him, Mark, we think you're a clone. How can you do all this work? And then he brought in some people to help us from he knew from Vera Wang. This young man's his name is Love, and that's his legal name. Love is perfect because he's HR. HR is tough. You can imagine us. Workers on the spectrum and manufacturing. And we just started. I think this year they just started the 401k, and they're hoping, I think by next year, to have a medical plan. So people like that coming in from Vera Wang, who are helping. Another woman, Amy Gessler, she's an accountant. Her family has a big accounting firm, and she's taking the time. She stopped by. Her kids were looking for a summer job like 6 years ago, and we reeled her right in. And now she is counting every penny, and you will get that text message. Where's the expense report you have to send me? Where's the payroll from this week? I get it in. So yeah, we have a lot of good people helping out.
And those positions that you kind of just explained, those are full-time paid positions within the business.
Nope, we give them about $1 a year. So unpaid positions.
So it's like all like volunteer, like people are like generously, because generously donating their time because they want to be a part of this.
And myself too, by the way. They give me like a free lunch once a year. It's very addictive. What's different about us, if you're out there and you're thinking about different nonprofits and who you want to emulate or who you want to donate to, it's really different because it's a full result. This isn't some company donating 10% of their profits, and I'm not knocking that, or some company building one facility, Ronald McDonald House. This is like real. You're pulling people off the dole, off the Medicaid line, and you're actually putting them to work. And then you're seeing them make product. And then their product's on NBC show or being spoken about on your show. So to be part of it is very, very addicting. We've never lost any of our wonderful volunteers.
That is incredible. So I was actually going to get to this question too. So what's your role in the company now?
So, I used to do everything at the beginning. And then after a couple of years, my wife very sweetly, turned to me and said, this is over your head. You don't know what you're doing. We need someone who does. And so now we have, we have Mark Katz, running the board, and we have a board now, and Karen Katz running the processing center. So technically my role is the founder. And I'll be a situation like this, the face of the company. And I'm also the guy that the Debbie Downer who will say, the king has no clothes. I'll pick out the things. And I'm also the guy who will come up with the crazy ideas, the out of the box ideas that will move us forward.
So how in the world, here's the loaded question. I've probably been waiting all show to ask you this, or conversation is, How have you pulled this off going back to starting it? I mean, launching a business is hard enough as it is, let alone like, your mission of, trying to bring in, kids on the spectrum. But I think you mentioned like you kept your full-time career going while launching this. How?
I mean,
And maybe we need your wife for this question too.
I had a terrific job in high school that taught me about marketing, taught me about, business connections and lines of communication. A great job in high school. I was a bookie. Okay.
This is going to get good now.
Ever you see the football sheets, pick 3 games, 10-1, 4 games,
Yeah.
right? And we had a bookie in the neighborhood, a tall, doofy Marvin with the high waters, we call him. And you get kids like me to go out, and it was a big deal because we'd be making $1 a ticket, and we ended up growing it big. And I really learned so much from that. Like he'd give you a ticket and he'd say, you go make copies, and the Xerox machine costs money. So I learned if I put 1 down, now Xerox is out, I have 2. I put 2 down, and Xerox is out, I have 4. Now I could do 4 at a time. And he's paying me 1. And stuff like that. So, and then look, through life, I had jobs working, selling food at a pool. I had jobs as high as being, a radiologist running a department. So I got the full spectrum of employment from bookie to physician, and you just sort of use your common sense. One thing I would advise people is to read. Particularly books about businessmen or those who have honest autobiographies, like Howard Schultz's book. What's his name from Nike?
Phil Knight, Shoe Dog.
From Nike. Those books are very helpful, and because you realize, like Phil Knight, he has Michael Jordan, right? And in your mind, you're thinking this man's a multimillionaire, and he's 5-6 years into having Michael Jordan, and they're still having trouble making payroll. They're still 1 inch away from collapsing. You can learn a lot from that. The Jim Collins books?
Good to Great.
Yes. And he has like a series of them now. So it's a terrific book about leadership, really about not being a creep when you're a leader. Stuff like that was very helpful. And then the rest, I'm joking about the bookie in high school and all that, but I think a lot is, you use your kind of street common sense.
Well, I saw the Air movie over the weekend with unfortunately, I saw it with my daughter, who probably shouldn't have been in that theater because of the language, but it was a great movie. And Phil Knight's book is on my to read list starting here this week, I think. So
there's one high level book, which actually Howard Schultz follows. It's called Growing Pains. Now, it's a high level, more of a college type book. The last name, I think, is Flamholtz, Flamhotz. And
Okay.
Howard Schultz swears by that book. And it goes like, it begins when you're a small company, like it says, you're under 500,000, grow 500,000. So I've also been following that over the years to help us grow.
So as we kind of come to the end of our conversation, Steve, and I know that we're going to continue to keep in contact. So just remember that. What about either Sam or the business that we haven't talked about that you would want people to know about?
Look, and I'm taking zero credit for this because I didn't do it. The popcorn is insane. I don't know if you've had it yet. The popcorn is insane. I mean, we just devoted all those years to just making better popcorn. And we had Crazy Agnes, who has a severely disabled daughter, and our Crazy Agnes had culinary experience and she had medical research experience. So while everyone else was approaching it as cups of this and ounces of that, she was approaching it on a molecular level. And so, for example, we have cookies and cream.
Yes.
And the kids melt white chocolate over the popcorn, and then they smash up Oreo cookies and sprinkle it in and let it
I saw that, the video.
We call it our crack popcorn because people just get addicted to it. And she made dark chocolate espresso. The kids melt Belgian dark chocolate over the popcorn and infuse Stella espresso. So when you get involved with Popcorn People, we have this wonderful 1-2 punch, and we hear it over and over from people like, wow, I'm really doing good here. I mean, this is direct employment. You buy a bag, that works out to 10 minutes of some kid being employed. And that some kid could be 50 years old. You buy a bag, and we hear over and over, this is the best popcorn we ever had. This is one of the best popcorns ever. Your popcorn's addictive. Everybody's screaming they're natural, they're organic. Our popcorn's really made by hand. It is truly handcrafted. And we will not ever sell out and bring in, multi-million-dollar machines. We have some small machines. So if you want to start a business, try to do like Popcorn for the People do. Stick to a product, make that product great. And then if you can bring in some aspect that you help the world, it makes it sell even faster.
Well, I think that's just apropos. It's a tremendous, having some experience with family that is autistic. I just tip my hat to you and your family and Sam for what you guys do. Let me get to my final question I ask all my guests. And that question is, what is the best thing about being a parent?
What is the best thing about being the parent? I think with my kids, the best thing is I learned so much from them. They spent years questioning me, and they still do. And now, now I get to question them, and the world, I don't know if it's an illusion or not, but it feels like the world's changing very rapidly during my life. And so when I can have a conversation, like one of the boys called up the other day and said, Dad, this stuff about AI, I just got under the hood. I saw what the nuts and bolts, and the media is underestimating it. As much as they say it's changing the world, he said, Dad, he said, seeing that and working like that was the same feeling I had the first time when I was like 10 years old and I opened up this thing called the internet. He said, it's that much of a revolution going on. And then you'll have Sam, and I'm not saying who you're voting for, voting against. I'm not talking about the politics, just a story to show you Sam. He walked in the morning after Trump's first election, when he won the election. He walked in, he looks at the TV screen, he had just woken up, Sam, he goes, wow, Trump won? He goes, that's amazing. That's the 5th president from New York. See you later. And the whole room was going, wait a second, FDR, Teddy Roosevelt, who's the other one? And so you learn so much. That's the best part, I think, about being a parent for me, is how much I learn from my kids.
Well, that is, I love asking that question. And I've had the show now for over 2.5 years, and we're over 100 episodes. And I love that question because the different answers that I get and the emotion I feel out of having these conversations with people like you, Steve, are just tremendous. So for our audience, we'll have a link to Popcorn for the People in our show notes. Go out, buy a bag, wherever you are, because I know people listen to this show all across the country. So go online to Popcorn for the People and buy some bags, especially that the Oreo one. It's just cookies and cream. It's incredible. So Steve, I can't thank you enough for being on the Emotional Balance Sheet podcast, and I'll look forward to some more conversations to come.
Yes, let's do this again. We'll have some new stuff to talk about.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Emotional Balance Sheet podcast. Please visit tamacapital.com to subscribe to this podcast, or to connect with certified financial planner and registered investment advisor Paul Fenner of Tama Capital. And please join us again next time on the Emotional Balance Sheet podcast.